Good morning, distinguished delegates. I trust that everyone had a restful night. If you could take your seats so we can get started with this morning's proceedings. So we had considerable discussions yesterday, which took some time to work through due to the interest of parties. We have been going at a steady pace and hope that we can maintain our momentum today as we consider the remaining items on the agenda of the preparatory segment. Before we move on with the consideration of those remaining items, let us begin the morning session by hearing back from the contact group that met yesterday on how their first meeting went. So I'd like to ask either Ralph or Azra to report back on the contact group on the terms of reference for the study on the 2027 to 2029 replenishment. Ralph from the Netherlands, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and I would like to thank everybody from the Secretariat and you as co-chairs for guiding us through this meeting. Yesterday evening we had a first round of the contact group. That was very useful. Parties could express their general comments on the draft decision that's before us. And we also could look into the first part of the draft decision itself, especially para 2A. I think it's also important, and we would like to request for another slot when available, so maybe today or tomorrow. I think it's also important that countries that would like to participate in this group are there. So I just mentioned that we had a good participation, but I think we need more to get all the elements covered that were also raised earlier in the OEWG. So thank you.
Thank you, Ralph from the Netherlands. And certainly we're all aware that this particular topic that we're discussing of replenishment is one of significance for all parties. And so we would encourage many more parties to join, as the co-facilitator has requested. And we will certainly look to afford the group more time to further and complete its discussions. I see that Colombia is asking for the floor. No. It was a mistake. Okay, that's all right. So thank you. We now turn to agenda item 7 on the development of studies and strategies to find solutions to the significant accumulation of refrigerants in Article 5 parties. At OEWG 47, in the context of discussions on life cycle refrigerant management, Cuba introduced a draft decision to highlight concerns about the increasing volume of refrigerant gases nearing the end of their life cycle in Article 5 parties. While the contact group that considered the draft decision had made good progress, it had not been possible to reach agreement. The OEWG agreed to forward the draft decision as revised by the contact group to MOP37 for further consideration. The revised draft decision is set out as Draft Decision 37B in the document PRO 37/3. I would like to suggest that we establish a contact group straight away to continue discussions on the draft decision. I would also like to propose that Maureen of France and Sergio of Mexico co-chair this contact group, continuing on from OEWG 47. Are there any requests from the floor on this particular issue? Seeing none, wish to thank delegates, and that contact group will be established. Oh, someone was playing peekaboo with us. Yes, it's working today. So I'd like to propose that we continue with establishing the contact group at a date and time to be announced later. Thank you, parties. We now turn to agenda item 8 for consideration, and we're looking at feedstocks, uses of controlled substances. At OEWG 47, the European Union, also on behalf of Switzerland, presented a draft decision on feedstocks. As it had not been possible for the contact group to conclude its work, parties agreed to forward the draft decision, as revised by the contact group, to MOP37 for further consideration. That draft decision is set out as Draft Decision 37/C in Draft Decisions Document PRO 37/3. I would like to suggest that we establish a contact group and continue the discussions there. May I suggest that Morgan of the United Kingdom and Liana of Armenia co-chair this contact group as they did at OEWG 47. I now invite any parties that wish to make an intervention on this issue to do so. The floor is open. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and good morning, colleagues. The issue of feedstock has been coming up for discussion at each meeting. We would like to, though we have said several times in the earlier meetings, we would like to reiterate that as per Decision 412 of the MOP4, insignificant quantities of controlled substances originating from inadvertent or coincidental production during a manufacturing process or from their use as process agents which are present in chemical substances as trace impurities, or that they are emitted during product manufacture or handling shall be considered not to be covered by the definition of controlled substance contained in paragraph 4 of Article 1 of the Montreal Protocol. ODSs used as feedstocks are fed directly into the process as a raw material stream or as an intermediate in the synthesis of another product. Based on the deliberations during MOP 36 and in line with Decision 36.5/5, parties submitted information on best practices followed for production and or use of controlled substances for feedstock. Parties also have given information on national procedures and frameworks for management of production and use, including any controls on resulting emissions of ODSs for feedstock. While we are conscious that a contact group has already been formed at the OAWG and we will present our views in more detail in the group, we strongly feel that more time should be given to MC Talk of the tape to analyze the information presented by the parties to enable them to present their findings in the 2026 quadrennial assessment report, including on the possible ways for strengthening the existing processes and mechanisms in place in countries for management of feedstock uses of controlled substances. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of India, for your observations, which are noted. So as previously stated, if there are no other interventions, the contact group, Saudi Arabia, you have the floor.
شكرا سعادة الرئيس المشارك. في إطار هذا البند من جدول الأعمال المتعلق.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Within the context of this agenda item on the use of regulated substances as feedstock, Saudi Arabia would like to specify that these substances are exempt under the Montreal Protocol because emissions are minimal. This is in line with Article 1 and Resolution 14/10. Despite the last reports from TEEP and SAP, which highlighted an increase of controlled substances used as feedstock. We have not seen elevated and confirmed levels of these emissions. That is why Saudi Arabia encourages parties to ensure that any wording in the decision reflects these scientifically proven facts accurately. Saudi Arabia insists upon the fact that any action in the future on politicization of controlled uses should focus on improving data and collaboration and increasing capacity building without imposing new obligations on developing countries. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Saudi Arabia. I now see Greece is asking for the floor. Greece, you have the floor. It appears to be a mistake. All right, so thank you. Are there any other interventions on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, we would propose that those parties that have an interest and that have made intervention this morning, that you be able to participate in the contact group at a date and time to be announced later. Thank you. We now move to agenda item 9 on Halon 1301 and its continuing use in the aviation industry and management of other controlled substances used for fire suppression. At OAWG 47, parties considered the issue of Halon 1301 based on the report by the FS TOC. Australia, also on behalf of Canada, the European Union, New Zealand, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom and the United States of America, proposed a draft decision on Halon 1301 in the aviation industry and other controlled substances used for fire suppression. A contact group discussed the matter further, and the OAWG agreed to resume the discussions at MOP37 on the basis of the draft decision, as revised by the contact group. The revised draft decision is set out as draft decision 37D in the draft decisions document PRO 37/3. I would like to suggest that we establish a contact group right away and resume the discussions in the contact group. May I suggest that just as at OAWG 47, Yana of the Czech Republic and Juan Jose of Argentina co-chair this contact group. That is the proposal from the chair. Are there any delegations that wish to make interventions on this particular agenda item? I invite you to do so now. The floor is open. Okay, seeing no requests for the floor, we note that there are not many square brackets left in the draft decision, so we would encourage the group to continue to work efficiently to finish as soon as possible. The location and the time for the contact group will be announced at a later date. Thank you, parties. I now hand over to my co-chair, Annie, to take us through agenda item 10.
Thank you very much, Chantel, and good morning to everyone. We are now dealing with agenda item 10 on national and regional initiatives to support implementation of the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. As you will recall, at OAWG 47, a draft decision on national and regional initiatives to support the implementation of the Kigali Amendment was presented. A contact group discussed the proposal, and the OAWG agreed to forward the draft decision, as revised by the contact group, to the current meeting for further consideration. We note that in the interim, we have received advice that the draft decision is now supported by the African Group of Negotiators. The decision, as considered by the OEWG, is set out in draft decision 37E and is in the draft decisions document 37/3. I would like to suggest that we establish a contact group and continue consideration of the draft decision that was forwarded from the OEWG. May I suggest that Mariska of New Zealand and Camilla of Vanuatu co-chair this contact group, as they did at the OEWG, to continue discussions. If there are no objections to this way forward, I would like to propose that we proceed in this way. I see no one wishing to take the floor, so we will proceed in this way. Thank you very much. The room and time will be announced later. We now turn to agenda item 11 on the TEEP organisational issues, and specifically agenda item 11A on options for the reorganisation of the TEEP and its talks. You will recall that at OEWG 47, an informal group met with the co-chairs of the TEEP and its talks and interested parties in the margins of the meeting to discuss options for organisation of the panel and its talks. At the end of OEWG, the TEEP indicated they needed more time to provide additional information requested by the parties. The parties agreed to resume discussions on the organisation of the panel and its talks at this meeting. We also understood from that meeting that some parties also required more time for consideration. TEEP has been preparing additional information requested by the parties, and they stand ready to answer any further questions. I would like now to invite parties to indicate how they would like to proceed with this agenda item. The floor is open. I see an observer wishing to take the floor. I'm assuming that might be the TEEP. You have the floor. Nope? Okay. Can I call on parties to indicate how they wish to proceed with this agenda item, please? United States, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam Co-Chair, and thank you. We would like to suggest that it would be useful to continue with an informal discussion with interested parties and the TEEP, particularly with the TEEP co-chairs at the meeting. We feel like the information they may be able to provide based on the OEWG discussions could further our views towards a path forward for a decision. Perhaps it will not be at this meeting, but next year. We also would note that there are other agenda items that are relevant to this consideration as well. The organization of the TEEP and talks, their meeting schedule, and other factors associated with their work certainly are relevant in consideration of several other agenda items. So we think that such a discussion would help inform parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, United States. Norway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. First, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Kenya for their warm hospitality and the rich wildlife that keeps surprising us. We also extend our thanks to the Secretariat for the excellent organization of this meeting. Since the TEEP are ready to provide some additional information, we believe this could be useful to have to continue some informal discussion at this meeting for us to be able to hear more from the TEEP and consider the issue further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Norway. Are there any other delegations wishing to take the floor on this issue? I don't see any other delegations wishing to take the floor on this issue. In light of the proposal that's been made, I suggest that we will try and find some time for an informal meeting for parties and the TEEP and the TOC co-chairs to meet. It might be a bit tricky. We're a little bit short of conveners, but we will try and find a way at some point during the course of this meeting. We also note that perhaps there might not be a decision coming forward at this meeting, in which case, if time is really pressing, we may have to consider the potential for informals to be held perhaps at the OEWG next year. But we will try and find time at this meeting for informals as requested. So I don't see any other delegations wishing to take the floor, so we will proceed in that manner and hope that we can find time for an informal later in the week. Thank you very much, delegates. Chantal, agenda item 11B.
Thank you, Annie. Let us turn to agenda item 11B on changes in the membership of the TEEP. At OEWG 47, the attention of the parties was drawn to the list of the co-chairs and members of the TEEP and TOCs whose membership expires at the end of 2025, as indicated in the 2025 TEEP Progress Report. Today, the Secretariat has received 4 nominations. Ms. Marta Paisano to serve as MP TOC co-chair for an additional term of 4 years. Mr. Ian Porter to serve as MP TOC co-chair for an additional term of 2 years. Ms. Helen Tope to serve as MC TOC co-chair for an additional term of 4 years. And Ms. Helen Walter Tarioni to serve as FTOC co-chair for an additional term of 4 years. The nominations are posted on the meeting portal. If parties are submitting additional nominations, then please do so as soon as possible. These additional nominations will be posted on the portal as well. I would like to propose that nominating and interested parties discuss in an informal group and agree on the nominations. The Secretariat is ready to assist the group, as usual, and prepare a CRP containing the agreed nominations for appointment. The CRP may then be presented by one of the parties to the plenary at a later stage. The informal group can be given time and a room for its meeting, which could be organized at a later time, after all the nominations have been submitted to the Secretariat by interested parties. I would now like to pose to the meeting if this is an acceptable way forward and invite parties to take the floor to make comments on this issue. The floor is open for intervention from parties. Saudi Arabia, you have the floor.
شكراً سعادة الرئيس المشارك. تود المملكة العربية السعودية.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Saudi Arabia would like to express its thanks to Sergio Kotarov for his dedication to his role as co-chair of FTOC. We wish him every success in the role. Once again, we would like to express all of our thanks to him for his valuable contributions to this important task. Saudi Arabia notes that the candidacies presented for TEEP and SAP and insists upon the need for geographical distribution and the involvement of developing countries and high ambient temperature countries. Saudi Arabia encourages the group to make sure they involve developing countries. This in line with Resolution 31/8. Saudi Arabia stands ready to support the candidacy of experts who can contribute to the work of the committees, in particular in areas related to implementation in high ambient temperature countries, as well as on alternatives and energy efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you, Saudi Arabia, and that intervention is well noted. Are there any other parties wishing to take the floor on this issue? Okay. Seeing none at this time, we will continue with an informal group as proposed, and so parties can just be on the lookout for information on the time that that group will meet after all of the nominations have been received. So thank you very much. We will now turn to agenda item 12 on further strengthening Montreal Protocol institutions. At OEWG 47, interested parties met with the Secretariat to consider what topics would be discussed at the one-day meeting requested in Decision 36/9. The one-day informal meeting of the parties on facilitating implementation of the Montreal Protocol was held on Sunday, the 2nd of November, 2025. The Secretariat has prepared and posted a summary of the outcomes of the informal meeting as document 37/7, available in the English Advanced Version and to be made available in all UN languages as soon as possible. The summary is largely based on the key takeaways messages that facilitators of the breakout groups reported to the plenary. The Secretariat appreciates that the document may not capture the richness of all of the discussions, and so parties are invited to refer to the slides excuse me, for more details. Before I open the floor for discussions, my co-chair and I would like to thank all of the facilitators, the presenters, resource experts, and participants for their valuable contributions to Sunday's informal meeting. We hope that parties have had time to reflect on those discussions, and so I invite parties now who wish to do so to take the floor to make interventions on this issue. So the floor is now open. Okay, so seeing no interventions or requests for the floor, we propose that we can come back to this issue as we give parties a little more time to ruminate on it. And we can move over to the, excuse me? Thank you, parties, for your indulgence. We were having some technical issues. The European Union, apologies for the technical issues. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Thanks a lot. We would also like to warmly thank the Ozone Secretariat for organizing the informal meeting on institutional strengthening and for making sure that the setting indeed allowed a lot of time for parties to discuss and share their perspectives. So thank you again. What we have heard clearly and loudly during Sunday's discussions was the need to talk about licensing systems and the need to do it in a more structural way. Parties have different phases in their licensing system, and that is normal because we all have different needs and we all face different challenges. So this is a very good moment to share information in a concrete manner and to help each other to strengthen the licensing systems. So the EU sees very good merit in proposing a draft CRP, focusing on streamlining the information that we will provide to the Ozone Secretariat on licensing system as required under Article 4B of the protocol. Our draft CRP has 3 key elements. First and foremost, we would like to request the Ozone Secretariat to create a template that parties can use for providing information about their licensing system. This is helpful since all parties will be able to know what is expected via a concrete template, and it would also allow the Ozone Secretariat to summarize and compile the information since it is provided on an equal basis. Secondly, we would like to make sure that this compiled information by the Ozone Secretariat is made available for the consideration of the Implementation Committee. And thirdly, responding to the outcomes of the informal meeting, the draft CRP proposes also the establishment of a checklist by the Ozone Secretariat that we believe could be helpful in further providing guidance to parties when looking into ways on further strengthening their licensing systems. And we would really like to discuss this matter in a contact group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, European Union. And again, apologies for the technical issue. So we look forward to the submission of the CRP, which you can introduce when it is the appropriate time so that parties can review and have further discussion. So we look forward to the submission of the CRP. Thank you very much for that intervention. I now hand over the floor to my co-chair, Annie.
Thank you very much, Chantal, and I'm pleased to advise that we are slightly ahead of our schedule this morning, which makes a nice change from yesterday where we fell way behind. So thank you, colleagues. So now we are looking at agenda item 13, which is related to the work and the recommendations of the Implementation Committee. The President of the Implementation Committee will present his report on compliance issues that were discussed at the 74th meeting of the committee held on the 5th and 6th of July earlier this year, and the 75th meeting, which was held on the 31st of October and the 1st of November, just before this meeting. The draft decisions arising from those meetings of the IMCOM, or the Implementation Committee, will be presented by the President for our consideration and for possible forwarding for adoption at the higher level segment. As usual, all draft decisions of the committee or that the committee is recommending are contained in one conference room document, and that is CRP1, which has been on the website since yesterday. So it is now my pleasure to invite Mr. Martin Hildebrand, President of the Implementation Committee, to take the floor and present the draft decisions. You have the floor.
Co-chairs, distinguished delegates, I am pleased to present a summary of the work of the Implementation Committee at its 74th and 75th meetings. The report of the 74th meeting is available on the Secretariat's meeting portal, while the one for the 75th meeting will be made available on the portal in due course. The summary of our work is longer than last year because the committee recommends 9 decisions this year instead of 4 last year. So bear with me, please. It might take some time. This year, the committee considered data reporting issues related to Articles 7 and 9 of the Montreal Protocol, including the reporting requirements for HFCs under the Kigali Amendment, cases of non-compliance, including adherence and not adherence by individual parties to commitments in their plans of action to return to compliance, requests for changes to baseline data for HFCs and HCFCs, information on the establishment of licensing systems for HFCs, the submission of provisional data in the context of Article 7 reporting and systemic issues in relation to compliance. Similar to past years, the committee also heard reports from the Multilateral Fund Secretariat on relevant decisions of the Fund Executive Committee and on activities carried out by the implementing agencies to facilitate parties' compliance at its 2 meetings. While reviewing the status of parties covered by last year's MOP decision on non-compliance with Article 7 data reporting obligations, the committee considered the status of compliance of 8 parties, and all 8 parties have reported the outstanding data as requested in the decision. The committee also considered the commitments contained in plans of action to return to compliance of 3 parties. Libya has adhered to all its commitments under its plan of action, and a draft decision to close the issue has been forwarded to MOP37. Kazakhstan continues to adhere to its commitments in the decision outlining its plan of action. I will refer to the situation of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea shortly. In addition, the committee examined at its 74th meeting the issue of submission of provisional data following the discussions on the matter by the committee and MOP36 last year. As mentioned by the committee's president last year, this practice is problematic for the work of the committee, as without finalized data, it is impossible to ascertain compliance with the control measures under the protocol, and a party that submits provisional data for baseline use could circumvent the process for revising baseline data set out in Decision 13/15. Considering that provisional data is not in the Montreal Protocol or in decisions by meetings of the parties, the committee agreed that the Secretariat will stop treating any data as provisional. Non-baseline data can be corrected under paragraph 3 of Decision 6/5, and a revision of baseline data requires a request submitted to the committee under Decision 13/15 and following the methodology set out in Decision 15/19. The committee also discussed at its 74th and 75th meetings the document on systemic issues in relation to compliance. A summary of the discussions was presented last Sunday at the beginning of the informal meeting on facilitating the implementation of the Montreal Protocol and will be reflected in the report of the 75th meeting. I want to draw the party's attention to conference room paper number 1, available on the meeting portal in all UN languages under the in-session documents tab, through which the implementation committee is forwarding 9 draft decisions for the 37th meeting of the parties to consider. The first draft decision relates to data reporting under Article 7 of the Protocol. It notes with appreciation that as of the 31st of October of this year, 194 of the 198 parties to the Montreal Protocol had reported data for 2024, and that 123 parties had done so via the online reporting system, and that 170 parties had reported their data by the 30th of September 2025, as required under paragraph 3 of Article 7 of the Protocol. This draft decision further notes with appreciation that 74 of those parties reported their data for 2024 by the 30th of June 2025, as encouraged in Decision 15/15. Such reporting greatly facilitates the work of the Implementation Committee and the Executive Committee of the Multilateral Fund in assisting Article 5 parties in complying with the control measures. It is noted with concern that 4 parties, namely Armenia, Comoros, Iceland, and Sao Tome and Principe, had not reported their 2024 data by the 31st of October of this year. This situation placed them in non-compliance with their data reporting obligations under the Montreal Protocol until the Secretariat receives their outstanding data. This draft decision urges those parties that have not yet done so to report their data as soon as possible and requests that the Implementation Committee review their situation at its 76th meeting. The same draft decision notes that the lack of timely reporting by parties impedes the effective monitoring and assessment of parties' compliance with their obligations under the Montreal Protocol. This is one of the issues highlighted in the document on systemic issues in relation to compliance. Such late reporting creates challenges for both the committee and the Secretariat. To discourage late reporting, particularly on the day the committee meets to adopt its recommendations and during a MOP, and noting that annual data are due no later than 9 months after the end of the year to which the data relate, the draft decision on data reporting now lists parties that did not report by a specific date on the 31st of October 25, which is the day before the committee adopted its recommendations. This draft decision also encourages parties to continue reporting their data on consumption and production of controlled substances as soon as the figures are available, preferably by the 30th of June each year, as encouraged in Decision 15/15. Distinguished delegates, the second draft decision concerns adherence by Libya to its commitments under its plan of action to return to compliance as set out in Decision 27/11. At its 74th meeting, the committee congratulated Libya on its return to compliance with the HCFC control measures and for imposing an import ban on air conditioning equipment containing HCFCs. The committee further requested Libya to provide additional information on refrigeration and air conditioning equipment containing HCFCs already in stock, as well as information on implementation of the ban on procurement. Libya provided the required information, and the committee concluded that the party has adhered to its commitments under its plan of action. Consequently, the draft decision forwarded for consideration by MOP37 declares that no further action is necessary in this case. The third draft decision concerns non-compliance with the Montreal Protocol by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. More specifically, the DPRK did not adhere to its commitments for 2021, 2023 and 2024 concerning annual production and consumption of HCFCs as set out in its plan of action to return to compliance contained in Decision 32/6. The party was cautioned 3 times in the past by the meeting of the parties in accordance with item B of the indicative list of measures that can be taken by the MOP in respect of non-compliance, so that if the party fails to return to compliance, the parties will consider measures consistent with item C of the indicative list of measures, including the possibility of ensuring that the supply of HCFCs is ceased so that exporting parties do not contribute to a continuing situation of non-compliance. Furthermore, the Implementation Committee has made requests to the party in its recommendations 68/4, 69/4, 70/2, 70/3 and 74/2 to provide an explanation for the deviations of the data reported, to submit a revised plan of action to ensure its return to compliance, as well as a progress report on efforts to establish additional national policies facilitating the phase-out of HCFCs as set out in its plan of action. Although a representative of the DPRK attended the 74th meeting of the committee, the party did not provide the information previously requested by the committee. Consequently, in its recommendation 74/2, the committee reminded the party of the caution in Decision 36/16 and informed the party that if it failed to provide relevant responses as requested in the recommendation for consideration by the committee at its 75th meeting, the committee would recommend that the parties undertake measures consistent with item C of the indicative list of measures, including ensuring that the supply of HCFCs was ceased so that exporting parties did not contribute to a continuing situation of non-compliance. Despite repeated reminders from the Ocean Secretariat, the DPRK has not provided the information requested by the committee in recommendation 74/2. Therefore, the committee has forwarded for consideration by MOP37 a draft decision which states that in order to assist DPRK in returning to compliance with control measures in relation to HCFCs, the MOP would agree to suspend, consistent with item C of the indicative list of measures that might be taken by a MOP in respect of non-compliance with the protocol, trade of HCFCs, the substances that are the subject of non-compliance between the DPRK and other parties to the protocol, such that no such trade will be permissible under the protocol. In addition, the draft decision states that the suspension of trade on HCFCs with DPRK will continue until such time as the party returns to compliance with control measures in relation to HCFCs under the Montreal Protocol as recommended by the Implementation Committee on the basis of data reported pursuant to Article 7 or until otherwise decided by the meeting of the parties. Distinguished delegates, the 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th draft decisions concern non-compliance with consumption control measures for HFCs under the Montreal Protocol by Mali, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Tajikistan and Zambia. Mali, St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Zambia reported HFC data for 2024 above the allowable limits. Tajikistan reported data for 23 and 24 above control levels. All 4 draft decisions declare the parties to be in non-compliance. Mali indicated to the Secretariat its intent to request a revision to its HFC baseline data, but has not yet provided the information required under Decision 15/19 to substantiate its request to change its reported baseline data for HFCs. Therefore, in the 4th draft decision, the party is requested to submit to the Secretariat for consideration by the committee at its 76th meeting either a request to revise their HFC baseline data, including the information required under Decision 15/19, or a plan of action to return to compliance. St. Vincent and the Grenadines submitted a plan of action to return to compliance, which was reviewed by the committee. However, the committee noted that the plan of action had a prolonged timeline for the party to return to compliance by 2035, and that the party's Kigali implementation plan has not yet been approved by the Executive Committee of the MLF. The 5th draft decision requests the party to submit a revised plan of action after its Kigali implementation plan has been approved by the Executive Committee. Tajikistan has informed the Secretariat its intention to submit a plan of action to return to compliance, but the plan had not been submitted at the time of the 75th meeting of the parties. The 6th draft decision therefore requests Tajikistan to submit to the Secretariat for consideration by the IMCOM at its 76th meeting a plan of action to return to compliance. The 7th draft decision requests Zambia to provide an explanation for the deviation in its 24 HFC data reported above the limit under the protocol and, if appropriate, to submit a plan of action to return to compliance for review by the committee at its upcoming meeting. The 4 previously mentioned draft decisions propose to monitor closely the progress of the parties, to the degree that the parties are working towards and meeting the specific protocol control measures, or provide the information required in the draft decisions. The draft decisions, indicate that these partners should continue to be treated in the same manner as parties in good standing. In that regard, the said parties could continue to receive international assistance to enable them to meet their commitments in accordance with item A of the indicative list of measures that may be taken by a meeting of the parties in respect of non-compliance. Finally, when appropriate, those draft decisions caution parties in accordance with item B of the indicative list of measures, that in the event that they fail to return to compliance in a timely manner, the meeting of the parties will consider measures consistent with item C of the indicative list of measures. Distinguished delegates, the 8th draft decision relates to the establishment of licensing systems for HCFCs under Article 4b, paragraph 2 bis of the Montreal Protocol. The draft decision notes with appreciation that 161 of the 169 parties that have ratified the Kigali Amendment have established such licensing system. Moreover, 4 parties that have not yet ratified the Kigali Amendment have also reported establishing and implementing such licensing systems. The draft decision urges Djibouti, Oman, and San Marino to report to the Secretariat on the establishment and operation of the licensing systems. Furthermore, It notes with concern that San Marino, which accepted the Kigali Amendment in 2020, has not reported on the establishment and operation of its licensing system, and invites that party to send a representative to the committee's 76th meeting. The ninth draft decision concerns the request of 11 parties to revise their baseline data. Those parties are Bosnia and Herzegovina, Brazil, Guinea, Kiribati, the Marshall Islands, Morocco, Nauru, Nigeria, Niue, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. The draft decision confirmed that the 11 parties had presented sufficient information per decision 15/19 to justify their requests to revise their baseline data for HFCs and, when appropriate, for HCFCs. Therefore, the draft decision approves the parties' request to revise their baseline data for the requested baseline years. Distinguished delegates, coming to the end of my slightly long presentation, I would like to thank the 10 committee members for their constructive contributions and fruitful discussions, the Ozone Secretariat for its laborsome efforts in preparing and organizing our committee meetings, the MLF Secretariat, and the implementing agencies for their important work. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive presentation on behalf of the Implementation Committee. And on behalf of parties, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to you and the current members of the Implementation Committee for the excellent work and dedication undertaken during 2025. I now open the floor for any interventions or questions in relation to this agenda item. I see Comoros has requested the floor. Comoros, you have the floor.
Merci.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. My country would like at the outset to thank the Secretariat for the measures taken to facilitate participation in this august assembly. We'd also like to take this opportunity in order to thank Kenya for their warm welcome and for facilitating our participation as well. My country would like to make some clarifications with regard to its situation with regard to compliance. As touched upon by the IMPCOM, we'd like at the outset to apologise for the situation, and this situation of non-conformity happened for technical reasons accidentally and due to communication between our country and the Montreal Protocol bodies, particularly the Ozone Secretariat. We'd like to reassure you that at the moment that I am speaking to you, this data has already been communicated to the Secretariat and also at EXCOM. We're going to take all the necessary measures in order to avoid any inconsistency or non-compliance by our country with regard to the Montreal Protocol bodies. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comoros, for that additional information. I think that is very helpful and good to see that progress is being made. I now have two delegates wishing to take the floor. That's Lesotho and Nigeria. Lesotho, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Let me first of all thank the government of Kenya for welcome Ozone Secretariat for the good organization of this meeting. I also thank the INCOM for the good work they have done. I just have 2 points. One is in terms of non-compliance, that our belief is that the survey data was supposed to correct the errors that might have arisen out of the yearly data. But we don't actually understand that if we have the difference or just the difference between the survey data and the real data, normally we can say the country is not compliance. We don't actually understand. The other issue is that in terms of data, we are expecting to have the marginal error, meaning if we collect the data manually or if we measure the distance manually, after that measurements, if we take 10 to 100 measurements, we're expecting to have the marginal error in terms of data. But this one, I've seen that if there's a little bit difference, even less than 5% difference in terms of data, we are saying that party remains non-compliance. Maybe we want to understand how do we define compliance in terms of data against the error and against the survey data as compared to the yearly data. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those questions, Lesotho. I will turn to the Secretariat shortly to try and provide some further explanations. I now turn to Nigeria. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and good morning. We wish to thank the Implementation Committee for its comprehensive report, including the recommendation to reverse Nigerians' baseline data for HFCs. This further reinforces our belief in the principle of the Montreal Protocol to continue to support parties to comply with their binding obligation under the Montreal Protocol. We look forward to the final endorsement of the recommendation of the Implementation Committee at the high-level segment of the MOP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nigeria. As I have no other delegates wishing to take the floor, I will now turn to the Secretariat to try and provide some explanations to Lesotho on the data issue.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and thank you to Lesotho for the question. Under Article 7 of the Montreal Protocol, parties have the obligation to provide to the Secretariat both baseline and annual data. This data has to be provided by specific deadlines as set out in Article 7. And once the data is received by the Secretariat, it is assessed and we report to the committee. So we report to the committee on what parties submit to the Secretariat exclusively. And then the meetings of the parties have approved different decisions for the correction of data or for the revision of baseline data. So once a party submits annual data, which is non-baseline, under paragraph 3 of decision 6.5, the party can request the Secretariat to correct the data. Until such data is corrected, the data the Secretariat has is the one reported by the party, and so compliance is assessed based on the data reported by the party. And regarding baseline data, as mentioned by the President of the Committee, the procedure is set out in Decision 1315, and parties have to provide the information required under Decision 1519. So if a party provides baseline data to the Secretariat, that data is used by the committee to assess compliance until the data is successfully revised according to applicable decisions. I hope this responds to the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. Lesotho, you have the floor.
Yes, my question is whether we then, does this mean that we don't have the marginal error at all? Because the understanding is that scientifically working on the data, there should be the marginal error minus plus, unless if the decision says we are not expecting to have any marginal error in terms of this data.
Thank you very much, Lesotho. Secretariat.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, and also to Lesotho for the additional question. So in the past, the Implementation Committee has discussed whether marginal error or de minimis data above the compliance level, the control levels, is an issue of compliance, and the committee considered that, yes, it is. So in fact, that has been the discussion before, and even if the reported data is slightly above the control levels, the position of the committee has been that it is a compliance issue in the past. I hope this clarifies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. And I see Lesotho nodding. I think he understood the answer that was provided. I do not see any other parties wishing to take the floor. So I would like to propose that we forward these draft decisions contained in CRP1 to the high-level segment for adoption. Is there any objection to this proposal? I do not see any objection. The decisions are now forwarded. Sorry, Oman, you got in just before. You have the floor.
Thank you.
My delegation would like to thank the Secretariat for the outstanding organization of the meeting and to thank the Republic of Kenya for its warm welcome. We also like to thank the Ozone Secretariat for their efforts organizing this meeting. My country's delegation would like to confirm that the Zone Secretariat was notified on the operation of the licensing system on HFC. The Sultanate of Oman regularly report its HFC data since 2019. It also notifies the multilateral fund of such data. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oman. One moment. The Secretariat will clarify.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and thank you, Oman, for its intervention. At the time the committee met on October 31st and November 1st, the Secretariat had not received the data. If it has been submitted after the meeting of the committee, we have not been able to process it yet, so we can check if we have received and then provide that information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oman. We understand that if the information has been submitted after the implementation committee, there has not been sufficient time at this point for the Secretariat to process that data. If the Secretariat is able to process the data by the time of the high-level segment, I propose that an adjustment be made by the Secretariat to this decision to remove Oman from this decision. Is that acceptable? I don't see anybody wishing to take the floor. United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Well, that's an interesting proposal you have made that we are responding to instantaneously. I get, like, I'm just a little bit, so in other words, like, I'm just a little bit concerned. So this means if data is submitted in the middle of the meeting, as long as it's advanced of the high level, we will then revisit and edit like the recommended decisions that came out of the implementation committee? Like that's, am I misunderstanding what you're saying? Like, I think this delegation is going to need a few minutes to think about that. Maybe the immediate question would be, is this the normal operating procedure? Have we done this in the past? I would like to pause a little bit because literally just hearing this from the floor, I'm not sure if we are setting a series of new precedents here that I have literally had about 30 seconds to think about. Maybe if the Secretariat could respond with some of the history here, that might provide me a little bit of comfort, but otherwise I think we're going to need a few minutes to actually think about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, United States. I'm sorry to have caught you on the hop. I'll turn to the Secretariat to answer your question about precedent. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and thank you to the United States for the intervention. So the past practice of the committee was to agree during its meeting to revise any of the draft decisions and recommendations based on information received after the meeting of the committee and until these decisions were adopted. That was a past practice. In the committee meeting of this year, this was not proposed to the committee. However, the proposal from the co-chair was that with the agreement of the MOP, this change could be made to the draft decision. It was done in the past. It was an agreement of the committee. This time, the proposal from the co-chair is for the MOP to decide on this. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to make an additional comment that the chair of the implementation committee notes that they propose that, I'm just trying to find the data decision. It's actually the first decision, that there is a specific timeline included in paragraph 3 where they had not reported data by the 31st of October 2025. This request from Oman is in relation to the licensing systems, not data, and there is no timeline, I believe, identified in that particular decision. So that, I think we would be consistent with previous practice in relation to licensing systems in terms of being able to update a decision until the decision is adopted during the high-level segment. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and thanks to the Secretariat for these clarification. I guess, like the United States, we would just like maybe a little bit of time to consider this, so maybe we could come back. I do recall that it has happened at the MOP that we have edited some decisions. I think in particular, if the MOP was held before October 31st and, that this party had not reported data at that time, we edited the decision, if that data was reported during the MOP. I think only in cases where it's just a very sort of clear procedural issue, the party has reported or not, this is something that the MOP has felt that it could take that decision without necessarily having the implementation committee review the information. But still, we just want to make sure we understand fully the issue and that parties have a little bit of time to consider it before taking a decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Canada. I have two parties on my list now, United States and Comoros. United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Co-Chair, and just to say, very much appreciate the explanation from the Secretariat and the additional 3 or 4 minutes that it has afforded us to look into this. I do think, if I understand, you're saying we send this to the high level. If there's further information provided, that the Secretariat reviews in the meantime and then reports back to the high level, we could then look at this and revisit it. Is that the proposal? Maybe I could just ask for clarification on that. But I am a little bit more comfortable with regard to this, having a better understanding of the history and the precedent on this. I just want to make sure, given that this is sort of happening in real time, that we have a very clear indication from the Secretariat that they have submitted the necessary confirmation or information before we would move forward with a change here. And it sounds like that may be forthcoming. I'll leave it there for now, but appreciate the additional clarifications from the Secretariat.
Thank you very much. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. So the proposal as discussed with the Co-Chair would be for the Secretariat to review this data received apparently recently and check against the requirements of the protocol to report on the establishment and operation of licensing systems. And if that is the case, the Secretariat could report this back. And with the agreement of the MOP, the party could be removed from the list. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. In the past, I believe that parties have given the Secretariat the authority to edit decisions in light of late arriving information, but I believe in this case there would be an explicit presentation made to the high-level segment about whether Oman has provided the information and whether it meets the requirements, and therefore whether Oman would be removed from the draft decision. I will let the United States think on that a little bit while I give Comoros the floor.
Thank you, Co-Chair. I'd just like to recall that the case we're discussing, that is Oman, also concerns the Comoros as well. We would like to submit our data just after the closure of the IMCOM. So we would like the Ozone Secretariat to also address with due diligence the case of Comoros in order to review the decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In relation to Comoros, in fact, it's a different situation. Oman is submitting information in relation to its licensing system. Comoros is actually submitting its 2024 data, and in the draft decision, there is a specific reference to the fact that the 4 countries, including Comoros, had not reported their data by the 31st of October 2025. So that is a different situation. which has been proposed by the Implementation Committee. I turn now to the United States. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Co-Chair. I think, well, I think the interventions from Comoros sort of highlights, I think, what is a little bit tricky about this, which is if we begin adjusting recommendations based on submissions that are made in the middle of our meeting, it is a little bit tricky for us. We are comfortable with what the Secretariat said. I think they should look at what is submitted. They should provide that information to us. We will think about that. And I realize apparently we have done this in the past, but every other country in the same position that provided their information, it went to the Implementation Committee and was reviewed by the Implementation Committee, and then we see the proposals for the decisions from the Implementation Committee. Just to say it's not, in essence, we are, unless I misunderstand it, the Implementation Committee would not consider this, look at this. We bypass the Implementation Committee to reflect the most recent information. And so, listen, I understand the desire of countries to have the most recent information reflected. I do think I can certainly understand you know, why that is a helpful thing from the country perspective. But unless I'm missing something, we are also now not sort of treating all of these information submissions in the same way. Some go to the Implementation Committee. If you come in late, you just go directly to the Secretariat and to the parties. And from our perspective, I would just note that's not ideal without staking out too definitive of a position on how we proceed. So I think it is useful, as the Secretariat said, to hear back from them. But also just to say, with regard, Co-Chair, to what you just pointed out, I do think the data reporting issue is a different one, and the setup of that decision is different. But if we start playing loose with the rules, well, if we're going to use slightly alternative procedures in some cases, we may get countries requesting to do that in a number of different places. So anyway, those are our reflections for now. We'd look forward to hearing back from the Secretariat, and we'll think about this a little bit more ourselves. Thanks.
Thank you very much, United States, for your reflections. European Union.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Yes, I pressed the button before I had heard the intervention of the USA, but I think we had similar reflections. I mean, depending on what type of information is provided, IMCOM normally has a role, so we had exactly the same reflections as the USA, but happy to hear the reply from the Secretariat. Thank you very much.
Secretariat has some more information to provide.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. So the Secretariat has had a chance to review information provided by Oman. We did receive an email from the party after the meeting of the Implementation Committee when we were in the informal meeting. We were not able to review this before. Normally, when we received information from parties on licensing systems for HFCs, the Secretariat checks if the party has informed that it has established a licensing system and that it is operating. And we have received that information from the party, so that information can be confirmed. I believe it was mentioned by a delegation before, when it comes to licensing system, that has been the practice so far. So that information can be shared now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat, for that update. Can I just ask the delegates that have taken the floor whether they wish to have a little bit more time, whether they are okay to forward the decision as is to the IMCOM, or whether they would be okay to remove Oman from the decision related to licensing systems in light of the information that's just been provided by the Secretariat. United States.
Thank you, Co-Chair, and thanks for your patience. Thanks to the Secretariat for the additional information and a little bit of the history lesson. So I think our preference would be, if we're going to make a change, that we do it here and then forward that change to the high level. I think based on what we have heard, in essence, this boils down to a country needs to make a formal notification that they have a licensing system. There's not like an evaluation of the licensing system. And so that was also a helpful clarification, I think, from the Secretariat. We do sort of have this, like there's a slight issue here of the IMCOM not reviewing it, but given the very specific nature of this being only a notification rather than something that involves data, numbers, information, assessment, I think in this very specific respect, we would be okay with agreeing here in this room to modify this specific recommendation to remove Oman, having heard what we just did from the Secretariat. Given the narrowness of this and given the past practice, I just want to be clear in saying so, that would not be something this delegation would be comfortable with on, frankly, most or all of the other issues under consideration by the IMCOM, where we think there's value, in fact, to the IMCOM doing the thorough review on them. In other words, this is a rather cursory notification. We wouldn't be comfortable in other areas, but I think here, in the interest of moving this forward and given the past practice, for our part, we would be okay with making that change here and then forwarding that to the high level, which, Madam Co-Chair, I think is what you proposed to start with. I'm sorry I took up more of your time to come full circle, but we did want to get some of those reassurances from the Secretariat that that was in fact the case and that they had looked at the email to confirm that it had in there the sort of the normal procedure for notification. Thank you.
Thank you very much, United States, and I note the caveats and the narrowness of your willingness to make this change, given that it is a simple notification requirement rather than an assessment of that requires more work by the Secretariat. European Union, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Given that we also came into this, I think we still have, yeah, in a way, those concerns, but if these elements indeed that this doesn't, you know, in itself require an assessment can be captured, I think this could be a suitable way forward.
Thank you very much, United States. If that is agreeable to the room, the Secretariat will remove Oman from the decision in relation, from the decision that deals with licensing systems, but we will also note the caveats that have been provided by the US and EU in the report of the meeting, so it is understood that this type of approach in terms of amending implementation committee decisions is very narrowly focused and does not overtake the work that the IMCOM would normally do in relation to other decisions. Is it agreeable to forward CRP1 with that small change to the high-level segment now? I do not see any objection. CRP1 is forwarded. Thank you very much for your time. We will now turn to, actually before we turn to agenda item 15, I would just like to note that CRP3 on atmospheric monitoring has been received from the EU and posted as an unedited advance copy. We will come back to the EU to introduce that CRP, but I just wanted to draw that to the attention of delegations. We now turn to agenda item 15 on the status of ratification of the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. This agenda item seeks to memorialise the number of parties that have ratified or otherwise acceded to the Kigali Amendment to this meeting, and to urge parties that have not done so, that have not ratified, to do so. In document INF 5, you will find the status of ratification of the Kigali Amendment by the parties. As of the 31st of October 2025, that was 169 parties. That is 29 parties short of universal ratification, which we were aiming for, we are aiming for, and so we encourage parties that have not ratified to consider ratification as soon as possible. A placeholder draft decision has been set out in draft decision 37EE. In the documents, in document 37/3. If parties agree, we will forward the draft decision to the high-level segment for adoption. If there are any late arriving ratifications, they will be inserted into the decision at the time of the adoption of the decision. With that understanding, can we forward the draft decision to the high-level segment? I see no objection. The draft decision is forwarded. Thank you very much. I now turn to agenda item 16, or is it 15 now? 15 now. And Chantal will take the lead on this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annie. Agenda item 15 is the next and last item in the preparatory segment, and it deals with other matters. Parties will recall that at the time of the adoption of the agenda, the United States of America indicated that they were planning to submit a CRP relating to the optimization of the Montreal Protocol. I would now like to ask the United States of America if they are ready with this CRP. USA, you have the floor.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Maybe I can just give you a status update. We have prepared a draft CRP. We have shared it with a number of countries to get preliminary input. Our plan would be to have it ready to be posted this afternoon. I mean, I can launch into an explanation now, but perhaps it would be better at our next plenary session when countries have the CRP in front of them and can read it, that I could provide some context and explanation for the contents of the decision. So that would be my suggestion, if that works for you, that we hold this in abeyance for now, come back to it either this afternoon or tomorrow morning, and in the meantime, we will work to get, with the Secretariat, to get the CRP posted. I think that will work because we are receiving some input from countries and making some modifications to it, so perhaps giving us a little bit more time will be more conducive to a constructive discussion and positive outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, USA, and we do agree with your proposed way forward. It makes sense for us to, or for parties to have an idea of what the contents of the CRP would be. So we propose that we park this agenda item until the CRP is ready and available for you to provide additional context for further discussion. So I will now hand over to Annie so we can go back to CRP 3 under agenda item 6. Annie.
Thank you very much, Chantel. So now we turn back to CRP 3 on atmospheric monitoring, and we would like to turn to the EU to introduce their CRP. EU, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and thank you to have the opportunity to present our CRP. I think we had yesterday a very fruitful discussion between parties with a very insightful comments from both the Advisory Committee and the Ozone Secretariat. So we really are happy that we had that chance to engage with parties. As I indicated there, we are coming forward with the CRP. The CRP, of course, recalls the relevant decisions. It notes with appreciation the work done up to now. It notes actually that yesterday several parties indicated that they would welcome to explore the potential for sites or institutions in their own countries in this context. And it notes with interest the work ongoing under the multilateral fund. Then there is basically 3 elements of an operative text. The first is to request the Ozone Secretariat in consultation with the Advisory Committee to continue with the relevant work, notably the elements that we already decided last year in decision 36.1, paragraph 3 points A and B. If you would read that part, it's really about what we were discussing yesterday. Basically to assess the suitability of potential sites, but now indicating that we, would like to make progress on identifying infrastructure and existing stations. I think that was a big topic yesterday in the discussions, in the 10 locations identified by the Advisory Committee, and preparing for next steps, taking into account the prioritization indicated by the Advisory Committee. As we indicated yesterday, for very specific reasons, there won't be funding available for that early on. And as such, we would like to ask to have access to a budget line based on the cash balance. So that work can be continued by the Ozone Secretariat with the Advisory Committee. Then we request the Secretariat to come back to this and report on all the work when we meet again. And finally, there is a request towards the Executive Committee to take into consideration the information provided in the document, notably related to costs, as was extensively discussed also yesterday. Again, we hope we can discuss this with parties, and of course, when we do so, I assume, but it's a request, that also the advisory committee can be present. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, EU, for presenting the CRP3 to the plenary. I would like to open the floor to see if there are any delegations wishing to respond immediately to the CRP. Canada, you have the floor, followed by India and Saudi Arabia. Canada first.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. We thank the European Union for outlining the key elements of the CRP on atmospheric monitoring. And based on what we hear, these are all things that, in principle, we agree with. However, we don't see that the CRP has been posted on the website. I've refreshed my screen a few times, and I haven't seen it. So I think for CRPs that are, more than, a few lines, before perhaps going into substantive discussion, we should probably wait until they're posted. Also, I recall you referred to CRP3 as if there was a CRP2 that was also posted, but I don't see that one either, so thank you.
The Secretariat suggests you may wish to refresh now. Can people see the CRP now? I see some nodding. Yes, so it is now posted. I apologise for being in advance. I hope that delegates took good notice of the explanation provided by the European Union. I can't speak for CRP2, I'm afraid, Canada. I think sometimes CRPs get posted out of order, so I don't think there's a strict order to it, but I'm sure CRP2 will arrive at some point. Okay. Thank you. I have India wishing to take the floor. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. We had the similar issue as had been pointed out by Canada, and now since it has been, we can see it there, it's there on the website. So we will go through it and we will come back on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I might just pause for a few minutes just to allow countries to at least have a quick read of it before we proceed. So I'll give you 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you very much, delegates. I think that's around about 5 minutes. So I would like to ask delegates if they have any reactions, immediate reactions to the CRP proposed by the European Union. I have Argentina on my list, followed by Saudi Arabia at this point. Argentina, you have the floor.
Gracias. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. For our part, we could see the document as published, but certainly we would like to be able to read through the text carefully, and unfortunately 5 minutes is not quite enough to do that. Therefore, we propose that perhaps, as happened with the previous CRP, we could park the topic and address it once again later and take advantage of these minutes in order to continue with the topics that we have on our agenda. We would follow the same logic for dealing with the CRPs which are to be presented. I know that it's an issue of delays in publication and not in sending the CRPs. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Argentina. So just to note, we've actually largely finished with our agenda, so we will be moving into contact groups. And so we probably won't have a plenary straight after lunch either. So any early comments would be appreciated, but also any suggestions on the way forward, whether people would like to consider this in a contact group. Saudi Arabia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and we would like to start by thanking our colleagues from the EU for their sharing this CRP. What we would like to highlight is echoing our colleagues from Argentina about the timing and the shortness of time to review and give proper attention to the CRP, and also that many of our colleagues here in the room are not, English is not their first language, so they will need time to review and have a specific opinion about the CRP. So again, we also request that we park this until maybe sufficient time is given to review and come back to it. And we would also request that moving forward, if there is any CRP submitted, to give sufficient time and notice to parties to review it before assigning contact groups to these CRPs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Saudi Arabia. Are there any other delegations wishing to take the floor? Canada?
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. I think I'll save some of my comments and question on the CRP, since it looks like we're going to be coming back to it. I would just say, because I heard you suggest that we may not have a plenary this afternoon. So as I discussed with the Secretariat yesterday, our CRP on HFC 23 is being finalized and should be submitted during lunchtime. That was with the idea that we would be able to introduce it today in the afternoon. So just also giving a heads up to delegates so that, you know, they're aware that it's going to be posted, hopefully sometime before, you know, 1 or 2 p.m. And hope that, you know, we do have at least a short meeting this afternoon so that we can discuss both CRP3 and the CRP on HFC 23. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Canada. I think, yes, indeed, we will make time for a short plenary session, which will be to get readouts from contact groups and to introduce any new CRPs that are posted by the time of the plenary meeting. But, you know, we've largely finished our plenary. We've gone through the agenda for the first time, and we're really just waiting on CRPs to be submitted now. Okay, so I propose, given the comments that have been made, that we come back to this issue in this afternoon's plenary session. and allow delegates a little bit more time to consider this and to perhaps to consider any of the other CRPs that are submitted and posted by the time of this afternoon's plenary session. Is that an acceptable way forward? I don't see any objection. In the meantime, there is still plenty of work to get on with, and we do have a number of contact groups that have already been established to continue the work that was started at OEWG. So I'll just consult with the Secretariat and we will put up a schedule in a moment. So thank you very much. So we will, we are proposing a plenary at 4 p.m. this afternoon. In the meantime, we will have 3 contact groups meeting before that. The contact group on regional initiative to support implementation of the Kigali Amendment will occur from 12 till 1 p.m. Feedstock contact group will be from 1:45 to 2:45 p.m. and the LRM, sort of shorthand for the Cuba decision, from 3 till 4 p.m. and then plenary from 4 p.m. The Secretariat is just getting that up on the board, and that'll be on your app as well. So the first contact group will start in a few minutes. All of these contact groups will be in CR1, by the way, so very easy. You don't have to move very far. And we note we've also left a short amount of time for lunch as well, between 1 and 1:45. So thank you very much, delegations. So just repeating, regional initiatives to support Kigali Amendment from noon until 1 p.m. Feedstocks from 1:45 to 2:45 p.m. and LRM from 3 till 4 and plenary at 4. Thank you very much, and I wish you well in your contact groups and see you in plenary this afternoon. Thank you.